We came into the year knowing that the Achilles heel of USC's team was the defense. They got some transfers. They got Bear Alexander, Tackett Curtis signed in last year's class. They've got some dudes, but were they going to be able to be a functional defense this year? And somehow they got worse. And I haven't looked up the statistics, but I watched the Washington game and my face started melting off of the bone. And I had to turn it off and put on the Alabama game. Dave, let's start with you. What is your reaction to Alex Grinch no longer being the defensive coordinator at USC, and what do you think this means for the Trojans football program moving forward?
Two things. One, usually you can earn some good PR when you fire a coordinator that everybody's been screaming to get fired for a long time. You negate that when you do it after the season's already over. And everything that USC would have cared about achieving this year is gone. So you fire Alex Grinch mid-season, and it feels kind of pointless because the season's already lost. Two, and you know, you could say maybe you should have fired him 3 games ago. Maybe you should have fired him a year ago. I'll listen to either of those cases. Two, this isn't a fix-all. Ari, I hit on it before the season. During the season, I think Grinch did not perform well this year, but I don't think that you bring in a new defensive coordinator that fixes things. I still think holistically how you practice, how you hit, how you emphasize, how you talk about the sport, talk about your program, operate your program is maybe just as big as your coordinator situation. So I think Lincoln Riley's got to fix those things in the offseason. And I think he hurt himself with the timing and doing it now. Obviously, I get why you do it now, but who cares at this point? You've lost the season.
You know, Dave's been on this, and I think that Oklahoma fans will be the first to tell you that this isn't an Alex Grinch problem, that this is a Lincoln Riley problem. And we're certainly going to find out if that's the case here in the next few years. But the reality is this: Lincoln Riley is going to be the coach there for the foreseeable future. He's nowhere near the hot seat. And somebody has to pay the piper for this. Somebody has to. And, you know, people are like, well, what do you think, or why do you assume that the defensive buck stops with Alex Grinch? And it's like, he is the defensive coordinator. And I understand the tackling more in practice. It looks like they don't tackle in practice when you watch them play.
It does.
But there's a difference between being an offensive-minded head coach and not tackling enough in practice and literally fielding what I think is the worst defense I've ever seen in my entire life. And I think to myself, what would this USC program be if they just had a defense that ranked 72? You know, like, I'm not asking them to be the 2000 Ravens out there. I'm just asking them to play in a high-profile game against Washington and not feel like no matter what happens, the other team is going to score points on that drive every time they touch the ball. And the only way that you can win is if you score a touchdown every time you touch the ball. I think it should have been done after last year. I was in Vegas for the Utah game, and, you know, I know that they were a half a football away from playing in the college football playoff, and I understand that Caleb Williams got hurt, and that probably had a impact on the way that game ended. But they didn't tackle in that game. They didn't want to play defense in that game. And I think we've seen enough from Alex Grinch's resume to move on from that situation and go for a person who we know can coordinate a defense very well. Manny, are you with me, or are you with Dave on this?
No, I think, look, until Lincoln Riley sort of just decides to change his philosophy that you're not going to score, 50 points every game and be able to win, just hitting 50 every game. Nothing's going to change at USC. It never changed at Oklahoma. Yes, they had Heisman Trophy winners and made the playoff and all that nonsense. But the bottom line is you're not going to win a championship. And
all that nonsense.
You're just not. You're just not. I mean, all right, I spent too much time researching the. I'm a stat guy. All right, okay. So
yeah, I've seen Manny's spreadsheets. It looks like something that would have been in the Unabomber's trailer, but it's effective and it's deep, and he really does his research. He's a numbers guy.
I'm a numbers guy, definitely. And I looked up the 5 unbeatens, right, and the 6 1-loss teams. And you mentioned 70th in defense, right? Like maybe USC, if they improved to 70th, that'd be good enough. The worst of the 11 teams on defense in terms of scoring defense is Washington. They're 46th. And then yards per play.
Wow, yeah. That's a good stat. Yeah.
And yards per play, they're 70th is Washington, 5.56 yards per play. So, you got to beat top 50 in scoring defense and probably top 70 in yards per play. And you could be a team that that maybe makes
if USC's defense was just 70th, they win last night, right?
Probably, yeah. Just get a few stops and you win that game.
I mean, they had the ball down 3 late in the fourth quarter. I mean,
yeah, probably.
They ended up not, Caleb Williams took a bad sack and then they punted it away and that was it. But, they had a chance to take the lead against the team that we think might be in the playoff with the worst defense I've ever seen in my life. So, and I know numbers are important. And I think that's a very revelatory stat. Maybe I can bump it up to 50 just to get there. But even then, that's not remarkable. I think you just need a coach that's going to recruit players and coach them up to be pretty good. We're not asking for elite or excellent. I'm sure USC would want that. But it is just so far gone that, Lincoln Riley had no choice. And people are like, I can't believe he actually did it. And it's like, really? I mean, I'm surprised it took this long.
Well, whatever he does in the future moving forward, he's got to prioritize just recruiting the position better. And I think, philosophy wise, that hurry up offense, like that's going to exhaust your defense one way. It's going to take a toll over the course of a season. So to me, like there's something he's got to do on the offensive end too, to at least take a little bit of pressure off of his defense in my mind.
Yeah. So we'll see what the next move is. I do think that firing your coordinator in November gives you a little bit more street cred in terms of being serious about fixing the problem. I don't know. Like you said, it's weird timing. Probably should have done it last year, but I thought it was an unserious program when they kept him, when they brought him back. So, all eyes are going to be on this.
I still thought, Ari, I think Lincoln probably agreed. Well, I don't know about agreed, but I think he clearly didn't feel like Grinch was the reason why the defense was struggling. I think maybe you could point to personnel. It was
so what changed?
Well, in terms of what, this year?
If you don't think if it wasn't his fault last year, why is it his fault this year?
I think
they had another year of talent accumulation.
Year 2 of the system, you add Bear Alexander, you get more guys. I mean, Eric Gentry, another season in there, and it's getting worse. And I think the conversation around it probably had to affect it. At some point, whether he thinks Grinch is a problem or not, the toxicity.
Someone has to pay for this.
Well, it's not even that. I don't think he sees it that way, Ari. I think it's more just like it's a distraction for the program. Like I think a lot of the coaches, when they recognize that the whole program gets defined by one thing. I mean, this is why Beth Getz pulled the trigger on Brian Ferentz, right? And this is why Kirk Ferentz was
it wasn't that they couldn't get a first down?
No, I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think it's that it's distracting to the program. I mean, you have one of the best college quarterbacks we've ever seen play the sport, and all anybody can keep talking about is how the defense is awful. That's a problem for a university trying to put its best foot forward. And you can look at it in an analytical way and keep it strictly on the field, but a lot of times that's not how a lot of these decisions are made. And I think I think obviously all those things are true, and I'm sure that factors in. But the thing that might push it over the goal line, it sometimes is just looking around and being like, we can't have our program just covered in like toxic fumes constantly. And firing Grinch doesn't fix it, but at least it ends the conversation, and you stop talking about how bad things are, and you start looking at, okay, well, now who can we get? And you start dreaming of a future, and you start selling hope, and you can start, more importantly, Ari, mining the portal. Keep an eye on the portal. Portal day is 31 days away. If you got your coordinator in place pretty quickly, and you're all of a sudden making calls, of course, no one would ever make a call before the portal was open. We know that. Honor among thieves. But the second the portal opens and you start calling guys and going in there, you got your ducks in a row. And I think that is a compelling reason to do this.